Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Thursday, Friday Blue Canoe Color Val gathering that we have every week for teachers and once a month for our fabulous Blue Canoe users. Please raise a hand or say hello if you're a Blue Canoe user and student and learner. Wonderful. So glad to have you. Every week and every month we come together to address questions and to explore how English works. And we're always interested in this bridge between the written and the spoken word. Actually, I should reverse that, the spoken and the written word. Dr. Barr has the thumbs up, and I think partly it's because we have to remind ourselves we're a very literate society. We spend a lot of time with the written word to the point where we can almost believe that the written word is first and the spoken word is a rough or lazy approximation of it, when in fact it's not that way. Right? Spoken language is its own living system, and the written word is actually the thing that's a bit stuck, and we find these mismatches. So today's topic is how to make that bridge and specific strategies for doing that. I'd like to invite just to know if you have a question, please find the chat and put your question in there. It might be a question about a word, or it might be a question about English, or a question about Blue Canoe, right? Or any question you have that you came for, okay? So I'll just ask for that. And Penny, I'll ask you, everybody say hi to Penny over here. Penny is our everything person. She keeps us organized, and I know you receive her emails. So Penny will be watching for those key questions in the chat, okay? So once again, we're here for markup. So I thought I'd walk you through my process, and teachers, you're welcome to add in any other pieces to this process that I use when we mark up a word. So the idea is that we're going to mark up. What is it we can do when we write a word that helps us think about and remember how it sounds, right? When I take a word, I first think, where's the stress and what color is it? So if I take a word like creativity, one of my favorite words, we can use our hand, of course, because it'll help us notice. Ready? Let's throw it out 3 times. Creativity, creativity, creativity. Great. So by throwing it, we leave our language mind, we go to the physical and musical mind, and we're able to notice the stress. So the first thing we do is answer that question of where's the stress? And to do that, I underline, and I'm just going to write my steps here to start with. I underline the stress syllable. And if everybody can see my board, if you can't, I want you to go to your options. You can go to my window on the three dots, and we can pin my video. Now everybody can see me, right? Okay, you can see my board. All right, so first we underline, and I'll take the word creativity right down here. Creativity. All right, and so the first thing I'll do is creativity. So there's my line to show where my stress is, right? The second step that came immediately after that was creativity. So what color is creativity? Creativity. You can put that in the chat. Creativity. Great. So thank you, Matthew. quick at the keyboard. So we've got a nice silver word. This is how I mark it for myself. Okay. And teachers already know how to do this, but learners, I think this is entirely a strategy that is helpful to you, which is why I bring it tonight and today. So we have a silver word with a line. We know what color it is. Next. What do you think might be next? Any thoughts about this, teachers? Creativity. It's easy to notice where our hand is out. What about where our hand is not out? Creativity. So I then, after thinking about my underline, my second step was the color, which I've noted, silver. My third, number 3, that I often think of is unstress, which is the opposite of stress. So let's say creativity. Creativity. So I have a lot of syllables back here that are doing all kinds of things, right? But the important thing is to know we have to have some small syllables in order to have space for a big syllable. So what's happening with the others? Yeah. Creativity. So we have some small unstressed syllables here. And then what do we have some other colors? Can we hear some other colors in this word? Creativity. What other colors do you hear besides silver as the stress? Good. There's the gray day. I see that in the chat. So I hear a little bit of green. I hear a little bit of gray. T is that silver. V is this nice schwa sound. V, creativity. And green at the end. So we have a lot of little colorful syllables in our word and one syllable that is reduced to schwa. Creativity, okay? I won't mark these up right now because they're not really in question, but when we do have questions, we can write, you know, oh, this is a little green syllable there, green syllable. So after unstress, then I'm very interested in what's happening here. And I might look for invisible sounds. So invisible sounds would be the sounds that are not represented in the letters. And for this moment, I'm going to take creativity and write it more quickly. We have screen sharing. Let me change things here. Here we go. Hold on. Let's change that. Continue. I think we have some confusing screen sharing. So I'm actually going to take this. There we go. I'll take this as an opportunity actually to write my new rules here. So my first was to underline the stressed vowel letters, okay? Underline. My second, I'll just make this a bit smaller for everybody. There we go. My second was to identify the color of the word, of the syllable. My third was to consider, I'll call it, or notice unstressed syllables. There we go, syllables. And now number 4 is to mark invisible sounds. Now that's not something that you may have heard about before because teachers don't usually talk about invisible sounds, but we do have them. And so in creativity, we can take the first 2 syllables, and if we listen carefully enough, create. So what's happening between cre and a? Is it creativity? Create, or create? Anybody hear an invisible sound there? I'm going to take this. I will stop share here so you can see my board. Okay, I'm once again pinned, I think. There we go. So here's creativity. So there's a sound here. And unless somebody helps you notice it, it may not be very noticeable to you, but it's very important. And it's an invisible Y. So I'm going to give you a little strategy, and that's this position here. This is a sign language for American Sign Language for the letter Y. So it's kind of handy, right? We're going to say creativity. Or we can just make this a shorter example to focus in here and say create. Okay, just to forget the rest of the word for a minute. Okay, so create is that Y that we find also up here at the top near green. So create. And so I look for the invisible sounds because I think without them, it can sound like a very strange word. Create. as opposed to create. Yeah.
I have a comment here. One of the things I love about the color vowel chart is that this is not a letter you have to insert at all. This is not a sound that you have to learn, where do you stick in a Y, where do you stick in a W. It's already in the chart itself. If you look at green, the moving vowel, create, you have to get to the Y anyway. It includes the Y already.
That's right. So right here, I noticed that there's a little bit of a shine from the light on my poster. But if you can see the Y's over here, and you'll see these on the chart in the videos that I have in Blue Canoe, that the Y tells you that it's part of the sound. Create. Very nice. Yeah. So it's naturally part of the sound, and we simply grab it like a handle in a train. It's right there, ready for us to use. Create. Okay. Wonderful. And then beyond that, then I think about consonants if I need to. Any tricky consonants? Is there anything in here that we have questions about? Create. Create. What kind of T do we have in this word? Is it create? Or is there something else happening, teachers? Create. Create. If you try saying it at the end of a sentence, like, what are we going to create today? What are we going to create? Yeah.
Maybe after a moving vowel or certain types of vowel, the T is not, you don't hear the T that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're not really hearing a full t sound, correct?
For example, in pit, the word pit, the T is more pronounced. But in create, it's kind of almost omitted.
Interesting. For me, I say this T in the same way, pit, pit. So there's something that's affecting this because it's at the end of a syllable. Regardless of what's coming before it, there's nothing after it. So it happens too with a word like stop, stop, right? Not stop. So these consonants that are at the end of a word will actually be stopped, like stop. Everyone try that. Say stop. My kids, for example, they used to say stop. But that's a childhood, kind of affectation. The way we say it naturally as adults would be stop. And that's simply stopped with no air. So there's no puff. Yeah. That's about the only interesting thing. I don't know. Anything else we want to say about this word? Create. Sorry. There we go. Create. So I want to look at your words now, because this was just one example. And over in the chat, looking over here at some of the discussion.
Mark asked
Bart,
about
do you have
chocolate.
any? Sorry, chocolate?
Yeah, Mark brought that up.
Okay, great. So chocolate. Wonderful. I'm just sort of trying to plan my board here. Chocolate.
And how to teach that, the first syllable.
Chocolate. Okay. So here's our word chocolate. Let me see if I can get my board. There we go. That's a little better. This is a new strategy for me to have so many things in my screen. Usually it's just me and the chart. So we're trying this today. My iPad comes tomorrow. So let's have fun with that next. Here's chocolate. Let's first just forget about what it looks like for a minute, right? And let's throw it out with our hands. So if I say chocolate, and that's one valid way to say it. Let's say chocolate, chocolate, cha, ah, 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 ah. Okay, so by doing that, we have now located the stress, which is on the first syllable. Okay, we've done our line, which is identifying location of stress. And this is what you see throughout Blue Canoe, right? This gives you instantly that information. What color? Cha, ah, 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 ah. I see Robin Barr. I'm waiting for Auburn to show up. I'm not sure, but for me, it's olive. Okay, so this is a nice olive word for me. It might be Auburn for some people because this is a vowel. So Robin Barr, is this an Auburn word for you? Okay, so we have different accents of English, and they're valid, right? These two are both possible. Notice that it's not chocolate or chocolate,
or even chocolate.
or roseboat chocolate. No. So it's not roseboat. It would have to be either Auburn or olive. Auburn or olive. And if those sound the same to you, then just call it olive. And this is what you see in Blue Canoe. Okay.
There's a dialect difference between number of syllables as well.
Yeah.
So I have 2 syllables, chocolate. How many of you have 3 syllables?
Yeah. Let's look at the room. I'm going to unpin myself for a minute because we can see each other. If you go to gallery view, it's a nice opportunity. So I also say chocolate. That's my natural, I feel that's my natural way. Who else? Hold up fingers. Who says chocolate? 3 syllables. If you're a 3-syllable person, if you're not sure, chance, I'm gonna guess. If you're not sure, you probably use 2 is my guess. Yeah, chocolate, chocolate. Do I see anybody with 3 fingers? I'm looking in 2 different rooms here. Okay, so I see some 3 fingers. Yeah, so chocolate, that could work too. Entirely comprehensible, right? With chocolate, what's that sound? Chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. So I like this chart for a lot of reasons, but right now I like it because I can use it for schwa, that sound that we don't really have a special color for, but it's hidden in a cup of mustard. It's the and of in a cup of mustard. So chocolate, chocolate. Everyone try that for a minute. You're here, it's like being a goalie in a football goal or a soccer goal. So we're here, This is resting position of English. Chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. So what's happening at lit? Lit. Yeah, it's another kind of schwa sound, chocolate. It might sound silver to you, or it could sound like more schwa. Chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. Okay?
More silver.
Yeah, a little more silver. Good. So I think the important piece here, there's so much variation here. Maybe this is not a syllable, and I'll go back to pinning my video so you can see up close. There we go. So maybe, come down, yeah? Everyone's there? Good. Okay, so maybe this syllable is gone, chocolate. This is going to reduce, and the way I should put this here is, let's just do this. Chocolate, right? This is very small, whatever it is going to be something like, it might sound a little bit like a silver. It can be a schwa, or we call it sort of crossbar, like chocolate, chocolate, chocolate. What else is tricky here? Anything? Do we have the same kind of T as create? Yeah? Yeah, it's the end of a syllable, so it's going to be a stop. And we'll just put a, I don't want to get too technical here, but we'll just kind of remind ourselves to stop right here. Stop. Chocolate, chocolate.
So
Not
Karen,
chocolate.
the problem that my student had, she's from Thailand, was the initial T in the CH right there at the very beginning. The T, the in ch. She couldn't get the ch.
Okay. So when Dr. Barr, you want to speak to this? I think you have some thoughts there.
So did he say, did your Thai student, he or she say chocolate as if it were SH? Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, there wasn't that hard T, and I tried to get her to put the tongue on the back of the front palate and get that. You know, I showed her with my mouth, and it was tricky.
So the difference here is between the stop and the continuant. So shh
Yeah.
continues and sh stops. So you might want to link that to S versus T and see if there's a difference between those two. I know that Thai speakers often have trouble with the continuant fricatives anyway, so it's possible that she was hypercorrecting, but I would have to talk to you more about that to find out.
Yeah. And while I appreciate, you know, we're all going to be interested in all of the details of a word, if you find yourself spending more than, I would say, a minute on chocolate, you know, the difference between somebody who has chocolate versus chocolate, notice there's not I think native speakers of English in the room, is there any misunderstanding about what we're talking about if I use a sh sound? And the answer is no.
No,
So
the vowels have a lot more semantic content.
Yeah, so the difference between, one consonant sound and another is minimal as an effect on the whole word. And so once again, in fact, this morning I was teaching a speaker of Japanese, and we got stuck on one word for about a minute. And I really try to time it so we don't go beyond about a minute, because then you just have to go back to its essence. And the essence is, where's the stress?
If you spend more than a minute, somebody winds up crying.
Yeah, exactly. We're a tear-free zone, no crying. And that's the responsibility there is on the teacher.
Karen, on the silent E or on chocolate or any word, is there any markup that you use for that? Just to help students recognize that, okay, just get rid of it. Okay.
Typically I'll do something like that, chocolate, like that. Yeah.
Okay, so
And then,
same use.
yeah, and then typically if there's nothing there, I just try to keep it as small as possible. And then to talk about reduction, I sometimes use that symbol if it's meaningful for, it's schwa. So it's this chocolate. And I don't, for linguists that are in the room, I typically don't go into such detail if it's with a student that doesn't know other phonetic symbols. So I don't get into crossbar I that sounds like a silvery schwa. Instead, I just look at a cup of mustard and we notice that it sits right on silver. So here's where chocolate goes. Chocolate, right? Chocolate. So it's still reduced. It's not chocolate. Chocolate, right? Good. Other questions? Any more about chocolate? I'm hungry. Okay. What's another word that's come up in the chat? Penny?
Gio gave some great words. They're single syllable words like work, walk, word, world.
Yes. Yeah. Good. So good. So work,
Walk,
walk.
word, and world.
Exactly. That's a perfect, it's the right order too. Word, and then my favorite, and it's still fitting on my board. I'll come down a little bit. That's going to be tricky with my purple up there. World. Okay. In fact, I'll keep word and we'll change it into world. Okay. All right. So this is going to be fun and pretty easy. Teachers, what do we do about work versus walk? Work versus walk. Or learners, what color is work? It's a nice one syllable.
Purple shirt.
Good. So we have a nice purple word, and I'll just mark it here, purple. Might feel tricky because purple may not be a sound in your first language. So we can always, I like using this strategy to get there. It's not part of the sound, but if you start low and far away from purple, it's easier than trying to come in right where it should be. So we're going to start far away and walk into it and then feel it. And it goes like this. We start at olive, ah, and we're going to come right up with the jaw, ah, and then curve your tongue just a little bit, but don't touch the top of your mouth. Okay, so it's ah, and now we're in the right place for work, work, and there's no movement, right? Work. I can move for the W part of it, work. But if I couldn't move at all, I could still say this word, work, work, right? So that's kind of handy. So that's a nice purple word. Any more questions about work? What happens now with walk? I saw Dr. Barr write Auburn for, yes. So I think first of all, let's go ahead and make this a nice silent L. In fact, because that looks confusing, I'll just erase it. And now we can say that this is a couple of options. This might be Auburn for some people. For me, it is olive. Okay. Walk, walk, walk.
For me, all the words that start with W-A or end with A-double-L or A-L-K, for me, they are all Auburn.
Mm-hmm. And I think
that's the distinction.
So we could have like the accent competition. And I think even I unconsciously move in this direction with these kinds of words like ball, 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 you know, so I can say ball, 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 ball. All of these are versions of the same word. And that's why we don't include both colors in Blue Canoe. One is sufficient. It may not match every native speaker's vowel, but it's sufficient to say that word, right? So ball or ball, either one. And that's why they're both here.
Karen, do you feel the difference between wok and chocolate then?
I don't. For me, everything categorizes consciously into olive.
Okay.
And
They're both Auburn for me too.
uh-huh. And
Those are
so
the same for me.
when Dr. Barr and I have been in the actual same classroom, this happened years ago together, where I was observing a linguistics class of hers, and
It was awesome.
it was awesome.
Awesome, yes.
And so I was caught, I was caught by these students using the Auburn vowel sound, even though I, at the moment, really believed I was using the olive sound.
In fact, you didn't believe in Auburn until that happened.
Right.
I
So,
remember.
and actually the word was ball.
Or,
The word was
or I think it might have been doll.
oh, doll. All right. So this is a little bit like Superman and Clark Kent. I mean, it's the thing where you don't really believe they're the same, you know, they're related. And I just thought it was one sound, but it's actually two in some accents. So enough about the native speakers, though. If you are a non-native speaker, a learner, one is sufficient. Both are great. Not a problem. Okay. And we've met people who say words like father with an Auburn sound, father. So it's really not, it's not just one or the other, really. It's very flexible here. Okay. Now, what about word? We're going to get to world. That's my goal. So we have work, walk, word.
Purple shirt.
Yes. And can we just go ahead and erase this one? Because now we've got work and word, and they're basically the same, right? They're both purple words. So I'll just put purple. In fact, all of these are going to be purple, right? Okay. So any big differences between these two? Is it more difficult because of the D, or is it just another word? Work, word. Any other questions about these two? You're waiting for world. So let's do world. So now let's put world right in the middle. Because even though it only looks like one more letter, it changes a lot. It's not just one syllable anymore. It's kind of more than one syllable. That's the first thing I'll say. Yeah, so let's listen to it. World, world. World. Who hears
Word.
two syllables? Anybody?
Word.
World.
Word.
I hear one and a half.
I'll try to do this without changing my tone. World, world. Now I sound like a robot, but can you hear the two syllables? World.
Contrast it with word. Say them both.
Word, world, word, world. Can we hear some differences there? Word, world, or word, world. So what's happening? This is really fun. So this L sound is, thanks, I'm looking over in the chat. So the L sound is not as simple as we may think it is. It's easy to think that it's only the sound that we touch our tongue up at the top. La, 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 la. Everybody say la, 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 la. Okay. So that's what we call the light L, a la. But there's a different L happening here, and it's what we consider a very vowel-like L or dark L, and it's back here. And it sounds almost like a rose or an auburn O. So world, world. And that's what you're hearing when you hear that second syllable, is a lot of movement. If you're trying to touch up here for world, world, it can start to sound a little odd. Any thoughts on that, Dr. Barr?
Yes. There's two things happening. One is that you might be moving your tongue tip up to touch where the, just behind your teeth, where the L is pronounced as in words like leaf, the light L, but at the same time, you're lowering the back of your tongue to create extra space in the back so that you get more vowel space in the back of the mouth, so that it's like oh. And there are a lot of speakers of English that don't touch their tongue tip at all, and just say pole, and don't ever get to the L. They just turn it into a vowel, like you said.
So that's
oh.
So you could say, you know, world. Yeah, so it can start to sound very much like a vowel here. And the other danger is if you do touch here and you are from a language that has a touching R, it can start to become whittled, you know, and then it's not sounding like that word anymore. Yeah. I once worked with a gentleman from Russia. I was just telling somebody about this.
Yeah, all of his L's were dark, right?
Well, I was working with this gentleman, and he had just come to the United States, and he said, "My biggest dream is to see a squirrel." And I said, "What do you want to see?" And it was a squirrel. He was very excited to live in a country where finally there are squirrels everywhere. And so I did have to ask, like, could you spell that for me? And this is early in I should have guessed, but he was excited to see the squirrels, right? The squirrels. And I could not hear this word. I heard squiddle, which isn't really a word. Squiddle. I was hearing a D right here. Why? I was hearing squiddle instead of squirrel. Yeah. In so many languages, this letter represents a touching sound, a touch of the tongue either here or in French, Matthew, right? You could be a touching sound back here, or in Spanish, right? And so you have to think about your first language. Does your R touch? And if it does, then automatically you'll want to touch and it will tap, because this right here is the top inside of your mouth, right? We can't forget that this is a map of this space in the mouth. So squiddle is touching, but squirrel won't, right? Okay, good. So do I teach girl as girl? If they're having difficulty with girl, then yeah, we can expand from squirrel to girl. I can use that. It's all a question of where the struggle is. So if somebody's saying giddle, then I'll come back to squirrel, girl, okay? And so
the students I've had trouble, that have trouble with it for me, are the ones who try to put it all in one syllable.
Yeah.
So they don't give enough time for any kind of movement after the R, which you need to have. You can't go straight from the R to the L without moving the tongue in a vowel-like way. Exactly. So I tell them to make it 2 syllables, and it works much better.
That's right. Yeah, and so this is suddenly not exactly a 2-syllable word, but it is 1.5. You know, I'm going to push the boundary and say, why do we have to have only 1 or 2 syllables? Why not 1.5? Right? Similarly with a word like, this would be a good
So Karen, can I just ask, do you have a tiny mark like the little Y's and the little W's to indicate that shift from the R to the L?
You would put a dot under the L is, I guess, what you would do.
Right, for a syllabic L. But that's a bit of a symbol. You could put a little schwa right there to show, just because there's some movement, you know, you need time to get there, maybe. Squirrel. I'm just trying to think of something that the student may already know. But this can be pretty handy for a lot of situations with syllabic consonants. Yeah. Okay, good.
It depends on whether it's at the end of a word and before a consonant, or whether it's before a vowel. So, you know, you could say girly with no trouble, because the L is starting the second syllable. But when you've got them both in the same syllable, you've got a fight between them as which one's going to be the vowel.
This idea of, again, we're talking about the letters versus how things sound, is why we struggle so much a lot of the time. This looks like a 1-syllable word, doesn't it? It looks like if you look it up in the dictionary, it says it's 1 syllable. And yet Everyone knows the song by the Pointer Sisters. I'm driving in my car. Dee, 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 dee. Well, the end of that song is, and when we kiss, ooh, here we go. Fire. Took a while to get there, but fire is not a one-syllable word. It's going to come up really high. It's got to move. Fi, and now we're way over here, and we need to get to purple. And that takes time. Fire. So if I need to add a little Y for myself, and if I need to add even something more, like Dawn was saying in the chat, like a little schwa, and get rid of my silent E. If this helps my student to rewrite it as fire, we can do that for a minute, you know, just to convey what's really happening in that word. Siamak likes that. Thank you. There are lots of words like this. It's not just one. So this is, you know, this is the wonderful world of spoken English, is if we really listen, we have control over our sense of the written word, and it doesn't become something that limits us. Any other words or questions or comments?
But I said it in the chat earlier, but you had trouble for like 1 minute with chocolate, was it? With a student. One of my students for the whole lesson struggled to say acquaintance.
Mm.
This was a tricky one.
Why do you think it's tricky? What was giving him trouble?
Well, the qu sound and ain.
You know what the hardest part for me is
Yeah.
spelling it. So I'm not sure I spelled it correctly. Does it have a C? Is that a yes? Somebody give me a yes on that. All right, good.
Does it have an A at the end instead of an E,
Yeah.
acquaintance?
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. Why would I know? All right, I'm just an English teacher. So good, so acquaintance. There's a lot happening here, but it sounds like the hardest part, if I just stop, you know, let's get rid of the rest for a minute. Acquaint. So now let's just work on that. Quain. And what I love about the QU letter combination is I could basically just say this is basically acting as a W. Qu. And then the only time it doesn't would be in something like, I love this word, Q, and then suddenly it's behaving as a Y. So I love that my Y, you know, the Y and the W keep coming back. I'm gonna move there we go. The Y and the W, they're the gift that keep giving, right? We can look into it and say, oh, there's another hidden Y. Here's a hidden W. Okay, so I'll take Q out of the picture. So here's quain. What else is hard about this? This is from Matthew, right? What else? What color is this?
Gray.
Gray. Okay. So if it's hard, I could build backward. I can start with just ain, and now we could add, if we need to, only if, quain. I can do that. Okay, quain, and use the hand to get away from broca's. Quain, or use a W. Quain. Okay, and then what? Acquaintance. And that A doesn't get much time. It's not acquaintance. It's almost not even it's a schwa. Acquaintance. Then what? Acquaintance. Yeah. So this is back to the idea of the center of the mouth and just being able to come rest. Acquaintance. And acquaintance are the same at the beginning and the end. So we have acquaintance. There's a schwa. Okay. Acquaintance. That's a C. Okay. So really, I think part of it is to step away from the markup, stop looking at it, and build backward, Matthew. Yeah. Tunce.
Acquaintance.
Could use a kazoo.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And now we could also just erase everything and finish our session by flooding words that all have that pattern. Acquaintance. What else? You can put it in the chat.
Robin had some. Pronunciation.
Permission.
Permission.
Acquaintance.
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 Good.
Accountant.
Accountant. Very good. So permission, acquaintance, accountant. Notice we do this in Blue Canoe. We always provide those little stress patterns that are the same stress pattern when it's a stress problem in your feedback. Okay. Plantation. Good. Tradition. Yeah. Mark makes a really, you know, a neat observation that for some reason, it's interesting, but this sound, this is the only one that has its own special name that most people know. The linguists know other names for all the other symbols, but in everyday life, this is just known as Schwa. And then guess what the names of all the others are? Colors.
I know.
So that's, you know what, we're back to the beginning. That's why I made the color vowel chart, because we only had Schwa as a name and the rest I had to go and write all the time. And I thought,
Sean, Ash,
you know,
Epsilon.
and, you know,
Yeah,
well,
no, it gets old.
this one and that one, and then the upside down R, and it gets old. Some people love it, but a lot of people don't know it. And these are still symbols that get in the way with your eyes. So we erase and we go musical. I want to thank everybody for being here today. What fun. Yeah, we should do this again sometime. How about next month? Teachers, I hope to see you next week. Users, I am so happy to have you here. I love seeing CMX's face. I can go back to my gallery view and unpin myself, and just really to have you here and to see, you know, the people who are using the work we do in Blue Canoe, to see the work that we've done for over 20 years and more with people like Dr. Barr and Penny and so many others who have pitched into our work. We love having you here. Have a great week. Stay safe and stay healthy.
I have a question.
Tomorrow.
Oh, another question. I'm happy to stay, but I wanted to let people go if they need to. Yes, questions.
Okay, so that Auburn dog, which part of United States talking like using that color roll?
I can tell you that.
Okay, sure.
It merges to Schwa in the West Coast and someplace on the East Coast. There are separate sounds in the New York City area and in the Midwest. In New England, they have they've merged it also, but they've merged it as Auburn. So they'll say a pot instead of pot.
Okay.
So, and England has 3, where most of the United States has 2. So they have Auburn, olive, and something else. Ooh.
And then Robin is always here for the very detailed explanation. My explanation is very crude, but it works pretty well. This is the Great Mississippi River. And generally speaking, you can think of this as where we only have olive, and over here is where you'll find Auburn as well as olive. So here they have both, okay? And so that's just generally very general. The idea that
Except in New England.
Right.
It's
then there's
only Auburn.
pocket, but it's very small, so we're not going to bother with it. Bother. So the further west you go, the more you'll hear, I caught the ball instead of I caught the ball. And if you don't hear the difference, that's kind of the point.
Okay, appreciate for the answer. Thank you so much.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Have a great night, everybody. Have a great day wherever you are. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.